Hello and welcome to our first mock draft battle. The way these things are going to go down is we're going to be using the Sleeper app. We're going to be usually putting AI for everybody else. We may use, Football Calculator, Yahoo's Fantasy Mock Draft to get some real people in here every once in a while, but I really like the way Sleeper's algorithm works. We use randomized order and we're going with a 12-team half-point PPR league with one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, two flex, and a tight end, and I think a five-man bench. We're not going to be worrying about kickers, defenses, and that's how it's going to go down. I ended up with the second pick, Kramer with the fourth, and AJ with the sixth. So what do you say we get into this?
Let's do it, boys.
Begin draft, and you got Alvin Kamara, first overall.
I love it. I guess I'm in a fine spot. I get whoever falls out of it. My pick's real easy, but
this is interesting for me. I almost don't like this. It seems like the obvious pick is Saquon Barkley, right? Partly, the offense is terrible, but who else is good? There's no one else that can take the football on offense. We were actually
get a ton of targets.
We were just kind of talking about this before we started recording, and I think I talked myself into Zeke. The way he was catching the ball in the second half of the season with Amari Cooper was it wasn't Saquon level, but it was close enough where I think he would overtake Saquon for that number one running back spot. Mainly because that Dallas team is just going to be better. And while Saquon's incredible, when your football team is absolutely terrible, it worries me. There's a world where Saquon isn't that valuable because he just can't rush the football. Because they can't pass it, so you stack the box with 9 people. I think first round, I want to go a safe pick, a guy I know I'm going to have all season. I'm not worried about a holdout, so I'm actually going to go with Zeke.
Yeah, I could see. Wow. Oh, my goodness.
What?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Texans homer at number 3.
I just said I like this algorithm, and Hopkins goes number 3 over Saquon. That's crazy.
Well, that's crazy for me, too. Now, something even more crazy is I actually have in my projections someone back here a little bit higher than Saquon Barkley, because I think Saquon Barkley is going to get the David Johnson treatment of last year. Again, like you said, 8-man stacked boxes, a quarterback that can't really get the defense away from the offensive line. I mean, he could have almost 10 people up there. They don't really have any breakout wide receivers. I guess they got Golden Tate, who's good for 5-yard routes, and Sterling Shepard, who can occasionally make a play, but I honestly, I'm just not even going to overthink it. He's projected to be the number one in a lot of drafts, so I guess I'll just take Saquon. But the other guy I was thinking of, call me crazy, I have David Johnson as my number 2 running back.
Not crazy.
I understand it, I do, but I honestly think even with all the risk of that team being awful, David Johnson still has more risk because, you have Kyler Murray, brand new offense, you don't know if it's going to work, and that offensive line, somehow I'm pretty sure is still worse than the Giants' offensive line, which means it's horrific.
Kramer and I are way higher on the Cardinals than you, light years higher than you. I'm up. Yeah, I'm up, and I'm gonna. If you guys don't want me to do this, that's fine. I'm not gonna take David Johnson just to keep it, somewhat realistic, because I think in our universe, David Johnson is going in this first 5 with those running backs. Would you guys disagree?
Some people might, I guess, take Hopkins over Johnson, but
I could see it.
Basically everywhere I see is
Hopkins. You should go with what you want to go. Treat this, we're drafting, it's our YouTube league. It's for bragging rights. It's who's the best analyst. Who would you pick here?
All right, if I want to have the best team at the end of it, I'm going to take David Johnson. I mean, this is no question in my eyes that whoever's left is not going to outperform David Johnson at the season's end. I think Cliff Kingsbury is much smarter than Mike McCoy as an offensive coordinator. I think that the offense is much more talented than it was last season since Christian Kirk gets a year to mature and Kyler Murray comes in, who, in my opinion, will be an improvement over Josh Rosen. So I'm going to take David Johnson.
No way. You don't say.
By the way, Christian McCaffrey went between Saquon and David Johnson. Following David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, Devontae Adams, James Conner, Michael Thomas, Odell Beckham, Joe Mixon, Julio, Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Antonio Brown going right before AJ's pick.
All right, yeah, and I do want to apologize for when I last spoke. I think Melvin Gordon absolutely has the potential to outperform David Johnson. It's just right now the holdout looming over him definitely leaves a yucky taste in my mouth, and I don't know how to
He
feel
doesn't
about
have
it.
the same. He doesn't have the same power that Le'Veon did last year, though. Le'Veon had that power because he was on the franchise tag,
Yeah.
You're right,
and so
and he's risking a fine.
yeah, he's risking basically his contract, which I don't think he's. I don't think he'll go all the way through with it. And the Chargers seem like they're pretty stuck in on their point that they're not gonna extend him, not gonna trade him. So
All right, so I'm up, and Travis Kelsey is staring me in the face. In almost all of my best ball drafts and in my mock drafts, I end up taking the top 3 tight ends early, and I just like the way my team looks, I think, when I don't do that. And I take one of these unbelievably talented skill players that are left because the first 2 rounds are just loaded with talent. It's crazy. So, who I'm going to take instead is the unsuspended Tyreek Hill. I know that he is probably due for some regression this year, but regardless, he is just so fast and he's so talented that that regression is probably not going to hit as hard as I fear. So I'm going to take him in the second round.
I just to your point, they may be the best combo in football, maybe in history. The only two I could
Honestly,
yeah, Patrick Mahomes is a mobile quarterback with a cannon. That is perfect for a guy like Tyreek Hill, who literally just wants to outrun the cornerback. So you could give him
he
enough
can
time and you
sling
could
that
throw the
ball
ball
over
that
them
far.
motherfucking mountains.
It's broken. It almost is broken. So
nerf him.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey went after that pick. It's unfortunate. I definitely would have taken him here. Staring at me right now at the top of the ADP board is Nick Chubb, Damian Williams, Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette. And I think the way I seem to end up the happiest at the end of my drafts is when I take 2 stud running backs right off the bat. And getting Damian Williams back here after all these guys go off, where Andy Reid produces top 5 running backs almost every single year. And if Damian Williams is able to hold up and get the full volume that, say, Kareem Hunt did last year, and you're not worried about Carlos Hyde or Darwin Thompson, I think there's no way he's not going to be up in those top 6 guys at least. He gets incredible volume, one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the league, and he's going to be running in those, talk about the opposite of Saquon Barkley, running in basically empty boxes. So I'm taking Damian Williams here, not even looking back. I love it.
ooh, the computer won't.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I'll let you guys take these 2 picks before I make my point. I want to make a point about the KC backfield after you take your pick and talk about your guys.
What was the point that you could literally stick myself back there and I'm gonna average 5 yards?
West, Spencer Ware.
And my point was, go ahead. I'll wait.
I'm gonna go with Mike Evans, and the reason I'm gonna be going with Mike Evans is because I have him extremely high in my rankings. I think I have him at 7, but the thing is, Bruce Arians is running that offense, which means they're gonna pass the ball a ton. And guess what? Mike Evans has been a top 10 wide receiver his entire career. He's still only 25, and you're just adding an offense that is perfect for him with Bruce Arians. So I have no doubts. It's another safe pick in my opinion, where I have a guy that's going to be a wide receiver 1. I have a guy that's going to be a running back 1, and I feel comfortable with those picks. The computer went Nick Chubb and Marlon Mack, interesting enough. And while
Heavy RB draft.
what do I do here? Do I go Devontae Freeman and just sure up the running backs because I'm going to have to wait a very long time before I get to draft another running back? Or do I take another stud wide receiver like a Keenan Allen or AJ Green or Adam Thielen? I'm going to sure up my running backs. I'm going to skip over Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette, who have higher ADPs. Those guys,
Take Derrick Henry.
God no. Again, I'm playing a very safe draft here. I'm going with Devontae Freeman, another guy that I think is just going to produce and I don't have to worry about.
Oh, wow.
Mahomes at 3-3.
0 RB for the 3rd slot.
Yeah. This is actually making me think here, because I Little known fact is that we did a couple practice runs, and every single time I was behind pick 6 and picking at the back end. This is weird picking up at the front because I'm sitting here in round 3 with Aaron Jones still staring at me. I don't really want that. Yeah, well, and Leonard. I actually really like Leonard Fournette too. The biggest problem he has is injury concerns. He has a hard time staying healthy, but if he does, he's going to be one of those guys like Ezekiel Elliott who just gets way too many touches, and that's probably why he breaks down all the time. But I think to keep my team a little bit more balanced, I want an elite wide receiver on my team as well. I generally like going running back, wide receiver, and you can grab a wide receiver right here that I think will be, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be in those top 6 wide receivers again, and that's A.J. Green, the go-go gadget man with those long, lanky arms. He's got those big.
I think that was the right
big frame
pick. The only way I would ever go 3 running backs in a row is if, let's say, Damian Williams fell to you in the 3rd round and you had some guy like a Dalvin Cook you got with your 2nd pick.
Yeah.
A weird world where there's just a guy you think is an absolute stud that you're going to be playing him in the flex all season.
Yeah, and it is hard to go 3 running backs. I do think wide receivers are super deep this year, that you can get some really good ones really late, but just having at least one elite level wide receiver just makes you feel so good and not have to worry about it week to week.
Right.
After me went Amari Cooper, and then we got AJ's pick.
All right, so AJ Green, Amari Cooper went, and the point I wanted to make about Damian Williams, I came into my research, doing my analysis for this season, not loving Damian Williams as a pick. I had a lot of concerns about Carlos Hyde, his name being in the backfield, and the rookie Darwin Thompson, but most importantly, I had concerns about Carlos Hyde. And up until last night, specifically, there was a tweet by a guy, Warren Sharp. You've probably heard of him if you are into analysis and stats. He is one of my favorite analysts for fantasy football. Here is the 2017 stats through 2018 stats for Carlos Hyde versus his counterparts. In 2017 for the 49ers, 43% success rate for Carlos Hyde with a 3.9 yards per carry, 47% success rate for Burrito with a 4.4 yards per carry. In 2018, when he was on the Browns, he was outperformed by Duke and Chubb. Chubb had a 50% success rate, 5.2 yards per carry. Hyde, 38% success rate, 3.4 yards per carry. And then he went to the Jags and finished with the same yards per carry as Leonard Fournette, 3.3 yards per carry with a 40% success rate. And success rate is defined by gaining 30% of the yardage on first, 50% on second, 100% on third. So all of that said, Carlos Hyde's a non-factor. Now I'm going to make my pick. Thank you. Damian Williams, hype train, chew, fucking chew. And
Look at you being a nerd with your numbers. You could have just said Carlos Hyde can't catch a football and Andy Reid won't let him touch his
numbers, bitch.
He's got a big fat head too.
So there's a running back that I really want, and I'm gonna bank on him being available on my turn on the way back in the 4th round. These running backs get ugly quick, and I think having one of the first 2 picks is super OP because Matt was able to get a guy like Zeke and Devontae Freeman. So here I go. I'm taking the pick of Stephon Diggs. I think this is the year where he finally outperforms Adam Thielen. His targets are always neck and neck. My biggest concern is the injuries with him, but I just think his talent's finally going to supersede that from Thielen and actually have a really great year.
Yeah, he's a PPR monster. Plus, he has those just insanely big games. He might not be as consistent as Adam Thielen, I think, will be this year, but I think he's the guy that's going to have those crazy 40-point games, 30-point games, 3 touchdowns, blah, blah, blah.
I think the way the offense is going to run this year, and this is coming from a Vikings fan, and I think you saw this a lot last year, is I'm not worried about Diggs really being inconsistent. I think he is going to give you those huge games, but the games he kind of, aren't huge, they're not going to be awful because he's getting worked into the screen game a ton. He's getting a lot more slants. Him and Adam Thielen are starting to really, run the same routes. They're just interchangeable. I mean, Diggs does have he is a better deep threat, but he's being worked so much short field wise. In a half PPR league, I'm never worried about Diggs just completely busting. And you have the upside of
Mhm.
he's just going to go crazy some weeks.
Yeah, he's the guy too that they'll probably use for all of their bubble screens, use for a lot of their carries, just those free in half point. I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a free point basically on those bubble screens at 5 yards or something. So, great pick.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm up again, and right now my team is looking like David Johnson, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs, and I'm liking it. At this point, though, I think it's pertinent that I take a running back. And I really do want to take Mark Ingram because I think that Baltimore, having Lamar Jackson as the quarterback, having that mobile quarterback really makes it easier for running backs to run, as that may kind of sound counterintuitive because Lamar Jackson can't throw super well. Gus Edwards was a huge success last season, and I think Mark Ingram is a better running back than Gus Edwards. That's why they signed Mark Ingram. However, I am super, super high on one running back this season, and that's because of the injury to, well, not the injury, but the injury consistency of Sony Michel being injured so much, and that's James White. I think he's going to be on the field a ton this year, similar to last season when when Sony Michel was off the field, and the Patriots pass so much to the running backs because that is a highly efficient play. They know what they're doing. James White is going to be a great pick in fantasy this season.
Are you not worried about Damian Harris?
No, I am not.
I am.
That is
I
my
would-
answer
Yeah,
to
James
that.
White. Yeah, just a solid no. Fuck that.
He's been in that system forever, dude.
I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, James White's one of those guys that, with like their loss of Gronkowski, and if Gordon's not able to come back, James White is like their number 2 receiving option. Really, I mean,
Yeah,
he
he
could.
led them in targets last season.
Yeah, I mean, that was with Julian Edelman gone 4 games,
Of course,
whatever,
yeah,
too.
of course.
But yeah, I could see him being the number 2 option for the passing game there and getting a ridiculous amount of targets again. I don't see him having as much as he did last year. He was what, at like 110 or something like that?
123.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not that much. I could see him still with like high 90s targets though,
This-
and that's
Mhm.
in a half PPR. That's all you really need to have value.
Before you pick quickly, this is why I'm worried. I think James White's going to do exactly what he did in 2017, where he's going to have not that many rushes. He's not very good at rushing the football, and he'll go back to around 70 to 80 targets. That's not horrible, but that's not startable in my opinion, where he got 420 yards
Yeah.
and 3 TDs.
Yeah,
Only-
if he does that, that's not RB2 status.
No, not at all. And the reason I think that is because Damian Harris can run the ball and catch the ball, unlike either him or Sony, which means Belichick can be like, oh, I can have the option to run the ball or pass it. That sounds wonderful, and put him instead.
Yeah, Bill Belichick does like the guys that he can put in anywhere. So with my pick, I'm staring at George Kittle up at the top of the board. Philip Lindsay, Robert Woods, Kenny G,
George
Sonny Michel,
Kittle's
Chris
terrible.
Carson.
I would never pick him. That's a terrible pick.
I see what you're trying to do there. I kind of like the idea of taking a tight end earlier, like I said a bit before. One of these top 3 elite guys, possibly top 4 or top 5, because George Kittle, the value that he gives you over like other tight ends is insane. I mean, a lot of times if you're drafting, if you miss the top 4, you might as well just wait the rest of the. Well, I'd say top 5 because I have Vance McDonald up there in my top 5. But George Kittle also had like the most yards after contact by any player in the entire NFL or something like that.
Guy's elite.
Yeah.
He's
For
just an
receptions,
elite
yeah,
athlete.
and that was even without Garoppolo. Now it could be a thing where Garoppolo doesn't help him as much, but I think at this point, with him falling as far as he did, I have to take George Kittle here.
Great pick.
You made me sad.
He said,
So if I didn't have Mike Evans, I would pick Chris Godwin with this pick without even a thought in my mind, because Bruce Arians just came out and said Chris Godwin's not coming off the field. If any of you guys got that
Yeah,
I
sleeper
didn't
alert,
see that.
and I think Chris Godwin's a pretty damn good wide receiver. And again, it's a Bruce Arians system. They're going to pass the ball basically 100% of the time, especially when you have Ronald Jones and Pam Barber as your running backs. However, I don't want to put 2 eggs in that basket, only if because Jameis Winston can totally implode and just be useless, and Bruce Arians going to have to go quarterback the game himself. I think about OJ. I would think about OJ Howard if it wasn't for the fact that Evan Ingram and Vance McDonald and those guys you can get later and I think are gonna have just as good as seasons. So there's gonna be a guy that I think I'm gonna pick a lot in these mock draft battles, and I might end up a lot with my real drafts, and that's Kenyon Drake.
Knew it.
The reason I picked Kenyon Drake, I think he is a top 5 talent at the running back position. He no longer has Adam Gase holding him back. In fact, he's getting a guy from a New England system as a new offensive coordinator who loves. He comes from a system where they utilize running backs in the passing game. And Kenyon Drake is an elite receiving running back. And he's just, in my opinion, an elite running back. So despite that Miami team not being that good, it's not going to affect Kenyon Drake as long as he gets the workload. And I see no reason any coach besides Adam Gase would not give him the workload. And that's because Adam Gase is a terrible coach.
Le'Veon, no.
Philip Lindsay and Tyler Lockett went at the turn. Sorry we haven't been keeping up with the picks. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube and you can just follow along.
Yeah, they have the 4-stack in the first spot of running backs in their first 4 picks.
Yeah, they're looking to trade them, but they probably should have picked better running backs.
Hey, Marlon Mack, watch your mouth.
This is tough. There's nobody in this range that I really like, if I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm definitely looking at wide receiver again. I'm not looking at tight end. I don't like going quarterback early. There's a guy I haven't been drafting a lot, even though I do believe in him. All right, Mike Williams or Cooper Kupp. I'll just be straight up. That's what I'm looking at. Cooper Kupp. I'm worried about him missing game time, and he's gonna be my wide receiver too, and that is not good news. And Mike Williams has so much opportunity in LA. But the thing is he ever going to be more than just a giant, big body wide receiver in the end zone? And now they have Hunter Henry back.
Cooper Kupp is avoiding the pup to open camp, though.
That's a good sign, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me and making that pick a lot easier.
Damn it, I should have let him fall.
You should have let me pick Mike Williams.
I don't know, dude.
But I definitely, in my opinion, when Cooper Kupp is out there, Jared Goff feels so much more, well, not more, so much more comfortable, but he's clearly the number 1 for Jared Goff. He seems to always look his way when he's under pressure. Cooper Kupp is a red zone machine, and I think he was wide receiver 2 until he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, or at least for the first 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's correct.
And in between that pick and here went O.J. Howard. I'm now on the board with Saquon Barkley, Damian Williams, A.J. Green, and George Kittle. And Kenny Galladay is the top on the board with Sony Michel and Chris Carson, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin. Then a couple quarterbacks in Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. At this point, I always kind of like balancing things out just because having the top tier starting lineup, not that you should always just fill your roster first and then look for bench spots, but just having a well-balanced team so you're not relying on your running backs to carry you through a week or relying on your wide receivers to carry you through a week when they could have bad matchups. I like having a good diversity, but I think I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the running back side here. Sony Michel is interesting with opening up on the pup and his knee injury. I've heard it compared to Jay Ajayi's knee injury, which is terrifying. I don't want to really draft that. And being a Seattle Seahawks homer fan, I'm going to take my boy Chris Carson here.
Chris 300 carries Carson. That's what I'm going to
say. The Seahawks are going to run the ball just as much probably as they did last year, maybe a little bit more, or a little bit less, sorry. Probably not 534 times. But, and a lot of people are worried about Rashad Penny, but they got rid of Mike Davis, who had 100 carries last year, over 100 carries last year. I think it's going to be, even if it's split straight down the middle between the two of them, there's still going to be about 200 carries for each person.
Exactly.
So, and Carson's the more straightforward. If they're on the 1 yard line, they'd probably put Carson in. If they're like 4 or 5 yards out, I could see Penny being the guy in those situations because he's a little bit more elusive and speedy, but Carson's just that banger that's just going to get it right up the middle. And that's what the Hawks like to do to their own, shooting themselves in the foot a little bit sometimes and just running and running, except for in the Super Bowl. Rip in peace.
Rip. And after that pick that Kramer made, Kenny Galladay went, and that number 5 team has a pretty well-balanced team out of all of these bots. He has McCaffrey, Kelsey, Cooper, Mark Ingram, and Kenny Galladay. Not a bad team for that
getting
robot.
McCaffrey at 5 is weird, but
yeah, either way, he could have McCaffrey or Johnson. I mean, that's still a nice team.
Unfortunately, he also
the
has,
Hopkins. Yeah,
he has Amari Cooper and Mark Ingram though, which, in my opinion, are 2 bad picks. But anyway.
Yeah, they're high variance for sure. So I'm up, and this is probably the easiest pick that I've made in this draft, and that's Chris Godwin. I am super duper high on Chris Godwin this season. He has so many more targets coming his way. He's an extremely talented wide receiver. Even without Bruce Arians in the house, he did super well with Deshaun Jackson gone. And if I check my numbers correctly, it looks like Deshaun Jackson is gone for the year. I think he's in Philadelphia. So Chris Godwin, welcome to my team. I think you are going to be a great pick for everybody.
He is going to be a good player. I will say that.
Yeah, you were just talking about his 99% 99% snap count not coming off the field.
Yeah.
Never. All right, so after that, Aaron Rodgers went. Mike Williams, Sony Michel, Calvin Ridley, Tevin Coleman, Deshaun Watson. Following that, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, little tight end run, Tariq Cohen, Jarvis Landry, Darius Geis, and Lamar Miller.
And just to highlight again why I don't like this section of the draft, I don't like any of those players besides Mike Williams.
No.
I wouldn't draft any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so okay
obviously
watching that.
Yeah, I like Rodgers and Watson, but not up that high.
Yeah.
It still scares me drafting a QB that early, really.
Yeah, and you'll have that definitely in your real life drafts, depending on how serious your friends take this. You'll definitely see that happen. So it's my pick with the 6th round here, and I'm really interested in DJ Moore this season, but I already have 3 wideouts, so I couldn't take that without slapping myself in the face, honestly. I don't think I could really take 4 wideouts here, even though DJ Moore and Tyler Boyd are on the board. I love both of those guys a lot. Just looking at ADP, Rashad Penny, Darrell Henderson, humongous gap, then Latavius Murray, another large gap, Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt. These running backs are abysmal in round 6. If there's any advice I could give you guys, take at least, I mean, that's a no-brainer to take at least 2 running backs within round 5. I mean, 3 if you can, man, because the drop-off is quite the crapshoot, and I don't want to have to rely on these guys as an RB2, just looking at this list. So with that being said, I'm going to go with what I said and take either DJ Moore and Tyler Boyd, and I think it's going to be Tyler Boyd. He just signed an extension with Cincinnati. He had a great season with them last year. Their offense is pretty talented, man. A.J. Green and Joe Mixon in that backfield with them. I think Tyler Boyd's in line for another great season.
Oh, and the guy I wanted went after you, Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, man, I wanted you to draft Alshon Jeffrey, too.
Yeah. I really like Philadelphia as a whole, but then again, I do think they're one of those teams that has enough options on their offense that it's a little bit scary taking one of them, and I more so look to, if you don't know which person you really like the most, take the guy who's giving them all the ball, a.k.a. Carson Wentz. I really like him a lot this year, but I have my pick now. DJ Moore is the top on the board for wide receivers. Baker Mayfield, Rashad Penny. Ooh, I could go the double Seahawks stack. Darrell Henderson, Matt Ryan, Eric Ebron, Robbie Anderson, Dante Pettis, and Sammy Watkins. I know who Matt doesn't want me to take.
Please don't do it.
I don't think I will. I kind of want to get another wide receiver here. I don't really want Robbie Anderson. I do like DJ Moore in a half-point PPR. He's going to get a lot of receptions. I am also thinking about obviously reaching for Dante Pettis right here, which is the guy I know Matt wants a lot.
He's trash.
He's the worst. Jimmy G is terrible.
Kyle Shanahan doesn't know what an offense is. He blew the Super Bowl. Remember that? Just project that over a season.
I blame Dan Quinn. Yeah, I'm gonna go. As much as I do like Dante Pettis, I do think DJ Moore is a little bit safer since he did it more last year, and with DJ Moore, I think Cam Newton's supposedly healthier. I don't know if I really trust that, but Curtis Samuel's going to be the guy, I think, taking the top off. DJ Moore is going to be the guy who's a little bit more intermediate, getting a ton of targets, ton of receptions. Maybe not crazy TD numbers, but I'm perfectly fine with having him as my wide receiver 2 in this situation.
I just had the biggest sigh of relief ever because I am drafting Dante Pettis. And I think Dante Pettis is going to be the number 1 in San Francisco. I am fully on board the hype train after reading. I was really not high on Dante Pettis going into this offseason, and I've read hype article after hype article. I rewatched the games. Even rewatching week 1 against my Vikings, Dante Pettis had some crazy good routes. And I trust Kyle Shanahan. And the biggest thing for me was grabbing Dante Pettis in case Cooper Kupp isn't healthy. That week 1, I feel comfortable having him as a wide receiver 2, and I can't really say that about anybody else left. So I am very glad you picked DJ Moore. Nothing against DJ Moore, but again, he's a guy I just don't know about. I do think Curtis Samuel has a chance of just being the number 1 guy on that team, and DJ Moore kind of falling off to the wayside just a bit. So,
yeah, and I could also see that I would put a little bit more faith in Shanahan's offense than obviously the Carolina Panthers offense, and just the yardage that you're going to get from Garoppolo compared to Cam Newton doesn't really ever, besides like his rookie season, he hasn't really blown the numbers off for yardage or really even TDs, but I could see why I would go with that.
Like every Kyle Shanahan offense since he's coached had quarterbacks of 4,000 yards or something like that.
Yeah, I think last year, even with Nick Mullins and
CJ Beathard.
CJ Beathard.
Jesus.
I think if you combine them all for the entire season, they were still like a top 10 quarterback. So.
Jeez. I was really thinking about my boy Baker Mayfield. I never go quarterback early. I love Baker Mayfield. I love that offense. I mean, you're throwing to Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. That's a dream as a quarterback.
And David Njoku.
But the thing is, there's so many good quarterbacks left, and there's only one tight end left that I think has a chance of being in that upper echelon with Zach Ertz, George Kittle, and Travis Kelce, and that's Vance McDonald. Antonio Brown isn't there, people. Who's going to catch the football? I don't trust James Washington. I don't trust Dante Moncrief. In fact, I think Dante Moncrief is horrible. Vance McDonald is going to get a ton of targets. Also, Jesse James left. He has no competition. He is the tight end. He's not that bad. Ben Roethlisberger still is going to pass the ball a ton. Maybe not as much as last year, obviously, throwing like record-breaking amount of times. Vance McDonald is a great pick. I'm tooting my own horn at this point. Go ahead, Kramer.
Yeah, plus he who was it that he stiff-armed into the next dimension last year?
He basically killed somebody. With an arm.
He killed
with an arm
man
bar.
on the field. It was someone on the Bucks, wasn't it?
It was.
Defensive backs. I can't remember his name right now, but after Vance McDonald, which I think is a great pick, I actually have him, I think, as my tight end 5, right behind O.J. Howard. After him went Darrell Henderson. I'm looking at the top ADPs on the board: Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan, Eric Ebron, Sammy Watkins, Drew Brees, Jared Cook, Allen Robinson. Kind of like Matt said, I'm not super into taking quarterbacks early unless I get like a great value on one of those really top 4 guys are kind of what I'm looking for. If I don't get that, then I tend to wait. I'm pretty set, obviously, on tight end. I don't need Eric Ebron. I don't really like Eric Ebron up at this value that much either. So I'm going to go wide receiver here, and I'm going to take someone that I know AJ likes. We just talked about him in our little preview. Someone that I know Matt doesn't like because he doesn't like Mitch Trubisky, but I really like Allen Robinson. People forget he's like 25 years old or something like that. And in his sophomore year, was it, or was his rookie year?
Sophomore year.
He had almost 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns.
He is 25, but I think he only has a quarter of an ACL left. Just putting that out there.
Well, 1/4 more than I don't know.
Yeah.
I was trying to. Oh wait, who's the? No, I was thinking of tear the groin off the bone from.
Oh.
Oh man, the running back from the Houston Texans, Arian Foster, off the bone.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of.
He was always my favorite pick too. That really bummed me out that he just like couldn't play anymore. He was so fun to watch.
Anyways, but Matt Nagy's system, I think, he's one of those guys that can just scheme people open. And if we watch last year's playoff games for the Chicago Bears, Allen Robinson had 14 targets, I think, for 12 receptions, over 100 yards, and a TD or two. I think after seeing how he was used in that game, they're more likely to keep using him that way. I do like Anthony Miller. He was actually one of my favorite wide receivers to come out of that draft, but I think he may still take a year or two to develop. He's still got to gain a little bit of size, so I think Allen Robinson is going to be the main focal point of that offense.
Yeah, really good pick, especially with your team. You're really balanced out there. That was your third wide receiver of your team, and having Allen Robinson in the 7th round as your third wideout, that's a strategy that I might be modeling myself after in the future, assuming Allen Robinson's ADP doesn't shoot upwards before it's time for me to draft.
Assuming he's still there and I didn't take him.
So I'm up, and I have too many wide receivers and 2 running backs, and at this point I need to fill another position, and I could do quarterback, tight end, or take another running back. Like we've said, these tight ends at this point are not head and shoulders above the rest of the pack that I could pick from as far as tight ends go. Quarterbacks, they're a dime a dozen, especially at this point. So I'm going to take a running back, and that running back is going to be Latavius Murray. And that role of Mark Ingram is something that I think can be filled almost cookie cutter like. The Saints are an extremely smart team. They understand that Alvin Kamara is extremely valuable to them, and they can still get extremely high utilization, extremely high efficiency out of him, not having him on the field 90% of the time. So that's why they signed Latavius Murray, to fill that role, to take reps away from Kamara, to give him rest, and Latavius is going to do that with success because the Saints scheme so well and have such good weapons on that team.
Something that's crazy to me that I was watching some game film the other day, the Saints had Alvin Kamara on like punt return duty last year.
Yeah, what are they doing?
Yeah, it's like, that's scary, man. That's like the word. I understand like the kickoff return because, you know, you have a little bit of time to build up some momentum and look for a hole. Punt return, man, you can just get screwed up before you even touch the ball, really. That's hopefully they keep him from doing that and give Alvin Kamara a couple
that's
more
why
carries instead.
the first overall AI pick picks so many running backs. He's just worried about their health. Doesn't want to return punts.
Yeah, that's why he has 5. God damn. All right, so
taking them all.
Yeah, dude, come on. So I'm up again, and we see 2 tight ends go. Eric Ebron and Jared Cook went. Also going Sammy Watkins, Christian Kirk. 3 quarterbacks in Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz. Marvin Jones also went, who I think is a good pick. Jordan Howard, Kareem Hunt, Ronald Jones II, and Miles Sanders, who I really like and would have liked to have taken here. So, now I have to make another pick.
Can I say
Who am
I
I gonna
have
go with?
one person
Go
I
ahead.
think you should pick?
Who is that?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to see if you do it.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, thanks. Thanks for telling me.
I'll tell you
That's in the back
after.
of my mind. Okay. Okay. All
That's
right.
rude.
So let's look at my options here. I got a minute 30 left to pick, and I really want to reach down low for a guy. And honestly, considering my team makeup and the fact that like I've already stated, am probably going to wait for a quarterback and a tight end. But actually looking at this landscape right now, guys, a tight end might be a good idea. If I don't take a tight end, it's a far ADP drop for the next one. And after David Njoku, who I'm looking at here, TJ Hawkinson, Austin Hooper, who I do like Austin Hooper, Trey Burton, and Delaney Walker. And even though OBJ is in town, I think David Njoku, as far as tight ends go, is still going to be extremely valuable. Is still going to give you pretty good numbers. So I'm going to take Njoku here and fill that tight end slot.
All right, now
I
to
would
announce what Matthew thought you
go
should
for
have
it.
taken. I definitely would have went with Royce Freeman there. because, as I said earlier, I'm personally worried about James White. I don't know how much you're worried about him. And then Latavius Murray, like, we don't know his role. Royce Freeman, again, like, he's going to split the carries with Philip Lindsay most likely. But I think he's a guy that you can actually, like, confidently plug him into your running back too. And I think there's a world where James White and Latavius Murray are kind of like, uh-oh. Like, I don't have a second running back.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just think that the Denver offense, when I look at it on paper, I'd have to try not to throw up. So I don't feel really great taking Royce Freeman.
Yeah, whenever I look at Joe Flacco, I just have to try not to throw up. So
yeah, and his options are Deshaun Hamilton and
Cortland
Sutton, who I do like Cortland Sutton.
well,
Don't get me wrong.
I think Emmanuel Sanders will be back by at the very least.
Achilles tear, though. That's
I know, dude.
scary.
That scares me.
Yeah, I almost think that once you miss out on those top couple guys, I would be fine with almost waiting until the very end, then grabbing someone like
Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews wouldn't be bad if he wasn't. Isn't he suspended?
No,
for the first 2 games.
No,
Who's
you're
missing
thinking of the Jets tight end.
Chris Herndon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's bullshit, by the way.
But Jimmy Graham is someone that I was thinking of that you could just pick up in the last round as a flyer for a tight end and just hope they end up working out, because last year he was pretty decent and he just had no touchdowns, and I think that should probably change this year with a different offensive coordinator. But in between our pick, Geronimo Allison went, which is a little bit unfortunate. I would have not minded to have that player. Sitting here with Saquon Barkley, Damian Williams, AJ Green, DJ Moore, George Kittle, Chris Carson, Allen Robinson. I'm feeling very confident in my running backs. Maybe a little bit less confident in my wide receivers. I still think they'll be consistent, but I think my running back is very well put together. And my wide receivers have some, AJ Green plays 13 games a year, basically. And DJ Moore is still yet to see if he's going to be able to break out and take that full-time number 1 role. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually going to go a little bit off the board, seeing all these quarterbacks go off. I kind of want to take this pick right here with someone that we're talking about him earlier. I love the Arizona Cardinals offense, and I think Kyler Murray. Yes. A lot of people take Cam Newton over Kyler Murray. I think those people don't understand that Kyler Murray. Oh yeah, there you go. Kyler Murray's a better passer, is a more accurate passer, threw for more yards in college, also ran for more yards than Cam Newton did, and takes less hits, and is in a better scheme than Cam Newton's going to be. I think Kyler Murray, would bet you $100 by the end of the year Kyler Murray's a better quarterback in fantasy for you than Cam Newton is.
I don't know. If Kyler Murray's alive, I'll agree with you. I don't think Kyler
barring
Murray
injuries, but then again, I think Cam Newton's way more likely to get injured.
You guys bring up good points with Kyler Murray. That offense might be reminiscent.
And I'm still scared of his shoulder.
of who was the Oregon Ducks coach that coached the Eagles? Oh my gosh, blanking on his name.
Chip Kelly.
We're great for fantasy. It's terrible for the team. Maybe that's a little bit of my bias coming out because I just think Arizona's going to be so bad, but that doesn't necessarily.
Chip Kelly worked for a year,
bad
right?
For fantasy. I guess. So
yeah.
I'm sitting here. I drafted Cam Newton because he is, again, this is the ultimate safe draft of all time, and Cam Newton is a safe pick where he's going to finish. He's going to be a top 10 or top 15, top 10 quarterback week in, week out. He's probably going to end up in the top 5, top 7 when it's all said and done. He does it every year as long as he's healthy. I'm not worried about his shoulder, and I personally just feel so much more comfortable having Cam Newton in there instead of Kyler Murray. And also, we are playing kind of standard settings, -1 for interceptions. I think in a -2 for interceptions league, which a lot of people are trying to move to, especially with 6-point passing touchdowns being more of a thing, I'd be more scared of Kyler Murray because I think he might throw 30 interceptions.
30? Jeez Louise.
Anyway, who am I going to pick with this pick? And it's going to be Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The number 2 wide receiver on an Aaron Rodgers offense, I think, is a no-brainer. I mean, the guy has a chance of, being a wide receiver too. You have a chance of, a Diggs Thielen kind of thing with Devontae Adams and Valdez Scantling. Maybe it's Geronimo Allison, though the talk is Scantling is going to be the wide receiver, which means he's going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, and Geronimo Allison's going to be in the slot. And I think Marquez Valdez Scantling constantly being on the field is not only going to give him more opportunity, but I think it's just a better place for him with his skill set.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I really like Scantling. I do kind of like him more than Allison. Allison, did he have a concussion last year again, or he had a couple concussions?
He was out quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit scary once you see a player start getting a couple concussions. Then it's like they could get one more concussion and end their entire career, basically.
Yeah.
But in between that pick and now, Sterling Shepard went.
You.
So I just don't like the Giants' offense too much as a whole, besides Saquon Barkley, because he's on my team. And just because he's a beast in general. But so my team right now, Kyler Murray, Saquon, Damian Williams, AJ Green, DJ Moore, George Kittle, Chris Carson, and Allen Robinson. I think I want to grab another wide receiver. Actually, let me look down a little bit further and see what type of wide receiver. I like the wide receivers down lower a little bit more than the running backs, obviously. So I'm going to... Wow. Do I go LaShawn McCoy here? I don't trust LaShawn McCoy. Or I go Adrian Peterson. I don't really trust either one all that much. But I think Adrian Peterson will at least have the job for the first half of the year.
That's
He
a
is
good
going to be
point.
on probably a not very good team, but the Redskins have a pretty solid defense. Then again, so do the Bills.
Yes, but the Bills
And-
also have Frank Gore, TJ Yeldon, and the best running back, Devin Singletary, out of that.
Yeah,
bunch.
that is. And no, the real best running back on that team, Josh Allen.
Yeah. Great about that.
Facts.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to go with Adrian Peterson here. No, I don't want to pick anything. Screw it, Corey Davis.
What?
Whoa.
Honestly,
I'm just gonna go with
I don't
the
hate
high
that.
upside.
I don't hate that.
it's the 9th round. We all,
Yeah,
he
He's
hasn't
burned
done
us
it.
many times. I'm just have burned Central team right here. Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, all the people that just burnt everyone.
AJ
now
Green,
everyone hates.
the past couple seasons
Yeah,
with his
true.
injuries.
People will probably hate my team then. I'll probably get last place in voting. Whatever.
All right, so I'm really eyeing up a guy right here that I worry could be too early and could just give me headaches. So I'm not gonna do it because this isn't best ball. But I do feel the need to take another running back here. My running back 2 is either James White and Latavius Murray, and you would like more guaranteed workload than those guys from an RB2 standpoint. I do have some decent trade bait if I was able to work one over a league mate, considering who I have. So let's look at my running back landscape. LaShawn McCoy is available, Austin Eckler, Jalen Samuels, Adrian Peterson, Deontay Foreman, and Damian Harris. And Damian Harris seems pretty appetizing to me. I wouldn't mind having a large slice of that New England pie. But like I said, mostly in best ball, I think that's a better scenario where I don't have to worry about playing a guessing game,
Yeah.
especially if Sony Michel ends up being healthier than I expect. Then that's just kind of a wasted pick. Darius Geis, I'm not quite sure what to expect out of him. The report is that he has made full clearance, no limitations, so Adrian Peterson doesn't seem like that great of a pick. I do think James Conner is going to get the majority of the workload in Pittsburgh. Jeez. Do I want to take a guy who has guaranteed okay workload in Austin Eckler, or shoot the moon and try to take somebody like a Peyton Barber?
It's a gross
has the
area right
potential-
here.
Dude, it's disgusting. I just feel dirty being in here.
I'd almost rather pick 2 times next round.
Right? Like, please, just like make my decision easier. You know what?
I'm not helping you, so I'm not telling you who to pick. There's a
I
guy
don't
still
want you
available
to.
that I just can't believe he's going this late, and I'm not going to say who it is, but it's insane.
Oh, I think I might know who you're talking about.
Oh, you picked before me. I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, but I need a running back, bro.
We got 18 seconds left. The computer's gonna
All right.
pick for him again. This happened in one of our test
I'm
rounds.
gonna take Peyton Barber just because I think that workload is locked in.
Yeah, Ronald Jones is so awful. He's not gonna steal anything.
I don't. I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree. That's all I was really gonna say.
I was gonna say maybe Austin Eckler. I wasn't a fan of him last year, but I think he might get some more workload. And like, of course, you have to worry about the holdout. Maybe he's the only running back there, besides Justin Jackson week 1. And Curtis Samuel went. That's who I can't believe is available in the 10th round.
That's who I was gonna take.
I don't need a wideout though.
No, I know you. I just think the ADP on Curtis Samuel is kind of crazy. I mean, I'm glad he's there, but
he's gonna be that Deshaun Jackson type guy though, where it's like you can play him, but he might just be one of those guys that you never really know when to play and when he's gonna go off and when he's just going to do absolutely nothing for you. Kind of like he did a little bit of that last year.
I'm going to look up his consistency percentages. Thank you, fantasy footballers. Nice. And see what it was last year.
So right now, I don't have a quarterback yet, and there's some decent quarterbacks at the top of my ADP board, specifically Jameis Winston, who I'm going to take with this pick. Like I've already said, with the Chris Godwin pick, a lot of confidence in that Tampa Bay offense this season. And I think if there's anyone that can kind of rein in Winston, it's Bruce Arians, the paint eater. So, Jameis Winston, welcome to my team.
Drink paint.
Fun fact, Jameis Winston is my number 4 quarterback in my rankings. I don't know how it happened, but he is.
Wow. Where's Cam Newton on your ranking?
Not as high, which makes you wonder why I picked Cam Newton.
You're a slave to ADP.
I should have had this stack with Mike Evans, too. That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it.
Now he's got the Chris Godwin stack with Jameis Winston.
Hopefully, Chris Godwin gets him to the 1-yard line constantly, and then Mike Evans.
And Chris Godwin scores.
Actually, the guy I think they targeted more when they were like right on
Chris Godwin.
Yeah, Mike Evans got all those deep touchdowns, but I do know that last year, being a Chris Godwin owner was a little bit frustrating in some of those games, just watching Jameis Winston overthrown by like 18 yards every time. That was a little bit frustrating, but hopefully I do think Bruce Arians is going to definitely bring that offense around. But again, that's again one of those teams where it's like they're going to have O.J. Howard. Everyone thinks O.J. Howard's going to do well. Everyone thinks Mike Evans is going to do well. Everyone thinks Chris Godwin's going to do well, but somehow Jameis Winston is being drafted. Most times it's like a quarterback 12 or sometimes not even drafted. That doesn't make sense to me. So in between that pick, DK Metcalf went. Top ADP players on the board, Phillip Rivers, but I already have a quarterback. Tom Brady's up there too, which is, again, insane. He's in the same area as Jameis Winston. I don't think that's even going to be close, really, at the end of the year value. Deshaun Jackson's up here. Golden Tate is a semi-interesting pick just because of the volume he always tends to get, and he's one of those really shifty slot guys that just always seems to be open, but he doesn't, and gets a ton of yards after receptions too. He's pretty shifty and hard to take down, but I think I'm going to go with someone here. I think he's a little bit too lowly ranked in Kiki QT.
I was just looking at
for the
him.
Houston Texans.
Out of Houston, Texas.
Out of Houston, Texas. When he was on the field with DeAndre Hopkins, he actually out-targeted DeAndre Hopkins a couple times last season. Yeah, which is insane. I don't expect that to keep happening. And obviously DeAndre Hopkins is the better player. Don't take Kiki QT with the 3rd overall pick like the DeAndre Hopkins team in this one. But I could see him getting right up near 100 targets. I think he's a better value than Will Fuller. Will Fuller, you kind of have to pay up for in the draft. And we all know that he gets hurt almost every play, basically. And Will Fuller's the guy, kind of like we were talking about just a second ago, the Deshaun Jackson type that are going to blow the roof off for a couple games and then do nothing for a couple games. But I think Kiki QT is a guy that you'll get him at the end of your draft and he'll just put up decent numbers all year. and you'll never really be disappointed. He's one of those guys you can throw in your flex every once in a while if you need him.
I kind of feel what you guys were feeling last round, even though I thought there's a lot of good picks left in that round. I hate everybody here. I honestly, in a draft where you could trade picks, I might trade these picks straight up for next year's, ninth and eighth round picks. Like,
I respectfully decline that offer.
really don't like anybody here. I guess there's two guys, and one of them's a reach. But first, I'm gonna grab James Washington. I have Vance McDonald, but those targets, Antonio Brown commanded so many targets, and they need to go somewhere. James Washington, very high draft capital. I personally think he's a really good player. Hopefully, this offseason, he's able to progress enough and gain enough trust from the coaches, from Ben Roethlisberger, that he's a factor. And if he's a factor in the first couple weeks, he can stick around my roster. If not, I'll drop him for somebody else. For running back, I've been taking this pick consistently with you guys, and I always get him before you guys do, and that's Matt Breida. He is the best running back in that backfield. We can go through all the stats. He has the best yards per attempt on the ground, best yards per reception in the air, out of Jarrett McKinnon, himself, Tevin Coleman, even throw in Colonel Mustard or whatever his name is, the Raheem Mustard. He's the best back in that backfield, and I trust Kyle Shanahan. Just because he went out and got Coleman, just because he went out and got McKinnon, doesn't mean he's going to not play his best back. And if Matt Breida continues being the best back, he'll be the one out there. And I think last year we saw Tevin Coleman can't do it. He can't be the guy. So for me, really, the guy's going to be between Jarrett McKinnon and Matt Breida. It's going to be which one of those guys gets the number one role. And I would bet Matt Breida. So for the 11th round, if I feel confident enough, I think it's a steal.
Yeah, plus he's just never injured enough to miss a game, which is
He doesn't
crazy.
need any ligaments. He could go out there with just a torso and he'll roll himself into the end zone.
Roll himself to a 4.9 yards per carry or something like that. Yeah, the San Francisco running back, also another thing, Kyle Shanahan, or I don't know if it's Kyle Shanahan or if it's just the 49ers themselves. They always seem to push out high-end running backs. And
Kyle Shanahan. He's just so good at scheming, and especially scheming his running backs open. They will always be open for Jimmy G to check down to. It's just, he's so good at it.
Yeah. So I would like right here probably to pick a running back, but I don't. Alexander Madison's the top one on the board. And then it's a little bit of a drop to the next guys. Where there's someone back there that I know I like a lot that I don't know if you guys like as much, but I seem to pick him almost every time, so I'm going to hold out and hope I get that guy. So I'm probably going to go with just a shot and take Devin Funchess. He could be the guy that steals all those targets from Eric Ebron, all those tight end targets, since Devin Funchess is basically a tight end with his body.
Yep.
I don't think he's going to be someone that's going to be incredible or, get 1,000 yards or anything, but he's someone who could definitely be up there in touchdown range. Again, we saw Eric Ebron get a ridiculous amount of touchdowns last year with little usage. And although Andrew Luck loves targeting the tight ends, I think Devin Funchess, again, he'll do a Jedi mind trick on him and actually change his spot on the roster to a tight end or something, and then he'll just get 8 touchdowns, and then it'll be worth it back here.
This is what I honestly believed happened with the player personnel management team in Indianapolis. They had so much money left over. They were like, hey, that guy had decent numbers. Give him $10 million for 1 year. Who cares? And then they watched the tape and they're like, oh my God, what have we done? Because he's the worst route runner ever to play wide receiver in the NFL. But who knows? It's Andrew Luck. Frank Reich is a very good coach. It's not a bad, flyer pick in the 11th round where we hate everybody.
Exactly. And a big body for Andrew Luck. I mean, until Paris Campbell takes over and shows that he's a better wide receiver, because rookies do tend to take time to come along, Devin Funchess is a pretty good 11th round pick in my eyes, because I am so high on the Colts this season. So it's my turn again. I haven't taken a wideout in a very, very long time. There are some decent ones left. I'm not going to take Emmanuel Sanders because I am pretty worried about that torn Achilles. I know that he's doing individual drills according to Sleeper and reports, but Paris Campbell's there. Like I said, I'm not. I'll end up cutting Paris Campbell probably for whoever does well in week 1 if I drafted him, because I don't think he's going to have too hot of a start to start off the first few weeks. Dante Moncrief and Anthony Miller there are looking me in the face. And there's a running back that I really want to take, but again, I'm doing so many best ball drafts that I'm worried that my best ball strategy is over skewing it. And I think Alex Madison, honestly, man, I don't know how confident Minnesota is in pounding the rock with Dalvin Cook. I wonder if there's a little bit of worry there, that they're worried about re-injury just because it happens so much. At any rate, I'm going to take Anthony Miller, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and just bank on that Chicago scheme being good. Trubisky taking somewhat of a step forward, however large that is, we will see. And I'm going to use that on my 11th round and not feel terribly disgusting about it.
Shout out to my friend Hunter, huge Bears fan. He might play with us in our YouTube league. He constantly talks about Anthony Miller and his ginormous hands. So that's where we're going to give Anthony Miller. He has big hands. Can Mitchell Trubisky find those huge hands? That's what we got to find out.
I mean, dude,
Tune in next week to find out.
You know what they say about big hands? I mean, big gloves.
Yeah.
So,
DeAndre Hopkins, big gloves.
Oh, here's a running back that I feel much better about than Madison, and that's Nyheim Hines. I'm going to take him right now. I like that ADP. I like him in the 12th round. If he's somebody that, gun to my head, I have to play him, I'm not going to feel too bad about it because of the way that Indianapolis plays, even though they might be in the lead quite a bit. I think that they passed the rock enough, and Nyheim Hines has shown how useful he was last season, that he's going to have a decent role in that offense again where, if I have to play him, I'm not going to feel bad about it. So, Nyheim Hines, welcome to the team.
Yeah, and by the way, after his last pick of Anthony Miller, Tom Brady, Emmanuel Sanders, Alexander Madison, Austin Hooper, Ben Roethlisberger, Trey Burton, Dak Prescott, T.J. Hawkinson, Dante Moncrief, Jimmy G, the sexy boy, Lamar Jackson, Delaney Walker, Nyheim Hines with his pick, and then Devin Singletary went. And it worked out perfectly for me because I got the guy I always get in these late rounds of the drafts, and that's Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think Mark Ingram is the type of guy that has proven himself really that he can be the full-on workload back. And in Baltimore, they seem like they don't really ever fully hand over the keys to one guy, maybe for a couple weeks, and then they hand it off to someone else. Sorry, Alex Collins owners from last year. But I just think Justice Hill is a far more skilled running back than even Mark Ingram. I think they paid up decently, a decent price for him in the draft. If there's going to be a receiving back in this offense, I think it's going to be Justice Hill. He's proven that he has the best hands. He has an incredible spin move, if you saw that at Oklahoma State. And I think the Ravens are going to cut one of Gus Edwards or Kenneth Dixon. Probably Dixon, I'm going to assume, since they don't really need 4 running backs on their team. And they have been known to skimp on paying players for the backfield. And I just see Justice Hill as one of those guys that you might have to hold on to him for a while and wait for him till a couple weeks in, but as one of your last round flyer picks, I think that's a perfect pick where he could, by the end of the season, be taking over the backfield for Baltimore. And that's an offense where you're going to get a lot of carries and probably a lot of targets because Lamar Jackson can't really throw it down the field.
So last test episode, I took the same player. My reasoning remains the same. Last year, this guy was slightly overhyped, and due to injury from literally the second snap of the season through the whole season, he never was healthy. And the times where he even seemed somewhat healthy, he played really well. I think people were just completely forgot why they were so hyped about him last year. That's Marquise Goodwin. I think he has a pretty good rapport with Jimmy G. He's a speedster, and if I have to play him, maybe Dante Pettis goes down, and then I have Marquise Goodwin on my bench. All of a sudden, I think Marquise Goodwin becomes, wide receiver 2 or 3. He's really the only other guy I trust at this point. I think Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd are going to take some time. Kyle Shanahan has very complicated offenses. It's not easy to wrap your head around. It takes a while to get introduced, and rookie wide receivers in general have a little bit of a struggle to break through. I like Marquise Goodwin. He's the fastest guy in the NFL, besides maybe Tyreek Hill. I mean, the guy was an Olympic sprinter, so I think we can give it to Marquise Goodwin. And he is the deep threat on that team still. So after that, I'm going to reach down and grab the ultimate lottery ticket in Justin Jackson, just in case Melvin Gordon doesn't report. Or he gets traded, because there are a couple teams that seem interested.
Yeah, watch him get traded to Kansas City or something.
I've heard Houston, and there was one in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay would be a perfect
Tampa
fit.
Bay would be
Yeah,
a good
I want
fit
that.
for him.
Yeah, I would be a little bit higher.
Melvin Gordon in the David Johnson role. Yeesh. That would be a little bit terrifying. Well, that was the pick I was hoping to take. Greg Olsen went in between those picks. I already have a tight end, so I'm probably just gonna go for a flyer on a running back, and another guy I find myself taking occasionally at the end. There's actually, now that I look at it, there's another person I am kind of interested in. I guess I can tell you guys because it's my pick and it's my last pick, and neither one's gonna get back to me. Darwin Thompson is one, obviously, in case Damian Williams... Actually, now that I think about it, I have Damian Williams. Probably a good idea to take Darwin Thompson just in case somehow Damian Williams loses the job. I don't think he will, but I do think Darwin Thompson would be the number 2 guy to come up in that situation, not Carlos Hyde. But the other guy I think that seems like a pretty good value down here is Chris Thompson. If that guy's healthy, the Redskins are going to be pretty bad. And he's proven that he's kind of like the James White type where he can occasionally go off for 14 targets in a game. He's not the sexiest or safest pick because he seems to get injured every year, but that's not a bad pick in the last round. But after talking about it, I definitely convinced myself to take Darwin Thompson to handcuff Damian Williams in case he gets hurt or somehow loses his role or something.
The thing about Chris Thompson is if Darius Geis comes in and, he's healthy and is the number 1, he can catch the ball unlike Adrian Peterson. So I'm usually high on Chris Thompson, but I think Darius Geis is a 3-down back. Once he is healthy, I think he's going to be a great player, a great pick. And I think it's also going to really hinder the role of Chris Thompson in that backfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it doesn't matter because you didn't even take him.
No.
Yeah.
Took the other Thompson.
Yeah.
So now it's my turn, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs, 5 wideouts. When we do these in the past, I end up taking this guy, and I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna take Traquan Smith of the New Orleans Saints. There's some pretty high upside there, especially I think. In touchdowns, I think he could explode for a decent amount of touchdowns just because that second or third wide receiver in the Saints offense tends to do that. So there's that variance there that I'm going to take. And, at this point, we're just taking lottery picks. So Traquan Smith is going to be the guy that I'm targeting late in drafts.
And that looks like that'll wrap up the draft. We got a couple picks going after. Let's see.
For some reason, it didn't automatically do it.
Yeah.
There we go.
After that went Paris Campbell, Jimmy Graham, Chris Thompson, Michael Gallup, Marquise Brown, and Raquel Armstead. So let's go over our teams here. For my squad, we got Kyler Murray at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Damian Williams, AJ Green, DJ Moore, George Kittle, Chris Carson, Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, Kiki QT, Devin Funchess, Justice Hill, and Darwin Thompson. I really like the looks of that.
I have Zeke Elliott, Mike Evans, Devontae Freeman, Kenyon Drake, Cooper Kupp, Dante Pettis, Vance McDonald, Cam Newton, also known as the better version of Kyler Murray, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, James Washington, Matt Breida, Marquise Goodwin, and Justin Jackson.
All right, and my starting lineup looks like Jameis Winston at quarterback, David Johnson and James White, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and my flex, maybe 2, Chris Godwin, then Tyler Boyd. On my bench, Latavius Murray. Oh, David Njoku is in my starting lineup as well. On the bench, Latavius Murray, Peyton Barber, Anthony Miller, Naeem Hines, and Traquan Smith.
All right. So I think I had the best draft. I think that one's pretty clear. So
No. I got me on the top.
well, we're gonna
Honestly.
have to let the viewers decide. Go ahead and comment below. I'll put up a poll. It should come up on the screen somewhere. I think it's the right side. What team do you think had the best draft? And if for some reason you think one of the AI teams had a better draft, go ahead and comment. Why in the world would you think that? And what's wrong with you?
They probably drafted 2 quarterbacks or tight ends.
Or they
Why would you
drafted
do
5 running backs with their first 6 picks. Or they went with
Stacked running back team.
DeAndre Hopkins, T.Y. Hilton, Patrick Mahomes, Robert Woods, O.J. Howard, Will Fuller, before then grabbing Darrell Henderson and praying to the gods that Todd Gurley doesn't play. Because if he doesn't, they have the best team, and it's not even close. But
Oh, God.
Wow, we're gonna look back and be like, wow, AI 3
That
was
team's
a
going to whoop our
monster.
ass. Yeah.
all right, guys, thank you for watching. We'll be back next time. I think we'll do a super flex draft next time, and
Yeah.
don't forget
Don't
to vote.
forget to like and subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe. We need those. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.